Yeah, exactly. You pinpoint that person so we know. There's actually.
Hi.
I don't see you. Harvey. So we made that.
Like, I might not even be there because I'm stuck with, yeah, exactly. A year from now, but I think for her it's better to take a step and watch it more. I think that's great. Another part is we have do that. Yeah, we do it right in the
drawing people in, you're connecting them. And then my topic is I look forward to that.
That's good. How have the travels been? Good. I know. Destroying hotel rooms.
Then what I'll do is I'll just blank it out. Okay, that's good. Do you think that you can refer back?
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, no, that's what
The simple part, yeah, just was the presentation.
What do you?
Videos. Yeah, exactly. Videos, parental guides.
Yeah. And I'll be here. I'll control it. So what we're using this for mental health.
Okay, so is this going to be transmitted in some way?
Yes.
Okay, so the video.
Barbara,
Video or?
he said someone didn't sign. He said someone didn't sign.
They really was. Yeah. All right.
There's a whole bunch of stuff recorded.
Hiya. Did you get my email this morning? Probably not.
I did.
Okay, okay. So I'll send you some stuff this afternoon.
The
Follow-ups.
Follow-ups, yes, I did get that.
Okay.
I was in the taxi, so I.
So I was glad to find out late yesterday afternoon that Ron's coming today, so that was perfect. That's great. Great.
I think it's
Hey,
like
No, it's okay.
No, that's it for today, I'm just saying. It's for posterity. Okay.
I'll put it in my collection of files, which
Yeah.
are local, and just sit there on this time.
Okay. And how was the afternoon?
This afternoon, it's good. Not doing it.
Right, yeah, okay. But Rhonda will make it happen.
Yeah, she did, so I gotta get back to her.
Yeah.
It's just, they've been,
just locked out the light.
One of them said, what's this, Bay Ridge?
Yeah.
You find everything. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They got it.
You need the glass. Just let me know after the
No, I'll think
Thank
Street out. Right. Just happens to be watching.
You told him about
Yeah. Okay, I know right
You're done for it.
I know, right? I think they're on super fun. Yeah, exactly.
Come follow me. I have it now. I'll forward it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll forward it. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not happening here. The perks of being
I can write it down, it's an easy one.
Somebody who has attendance.
We can make you an inside. They have everything. Not that much special. Yeah. I know. I remember. How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. How's everything going? Where are you going to? No, I'm not. Yeah, I was in Lebanon. Oh, in Sydney. Oh, wow. Did you go for your memory? Yeah. I love on the computer. I got you. Oh, just as I was doing.
The guys,
So I ate there because it was during the graduation. Friday, yeah, we had ours. London is, fourth.
You know, I'm like, yeah.
The biggest is,
But I wasn't baking before.
I think it's,
I know I had a group I knew from my baking days.
no caps, no caps, ST. Let's try that.
How long have you been with
3 years.
And where you been from? Montreal.
Usually it was rejected right away, so.
Right.
No,
Let me go. Yeah, there you go.
thank you, man, no problem.
Spent a year there. On campus.
Oh, there's a bunch of other things.
it was good.
I know, that's the first thing, yes.
bit slow. On behalf of AUB, I thank you for joining us this afternoon for this special roundtable with our Dean, Steve Harvey, visiting from Lebanon. He and Dr. Amal Musa will be discussing the leading role of the Olayan School of Business and what it does for the region, its contributions to Lebanon, the region, and even internationally. The discussion will be followed by a Q&A, and then we will have a reception where we will continue the conversations. Dean Steve Harvey was appointed in 2016 as the Dean, and he's also a full-time professor. Prior to that, he was a Dean at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, and was also, prior to that, a Dean of the Williams School of Business at Bishop's University. Finally, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to our co-host, Abana. We at AUB are delighted and honored to continue our partnerships with them and to work together on this and future endeavors. I will now turn it over to Zainab Dabba, Director of Membership and Events at Abana, to say a few words. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, thank you for coming. I first of all would like to thank AUB for hosting and organizing this event along with Abana. I'm especially thankful to Lena, who has been managing the relationship with Abana since she started at AUB, and as a proud AUBite myself, I'm so glad to see this relationship thriving. For those of you who don't know Abana, we are the preeminent organization for finance professionals and institutions who have an interest in the Middle East and North Africa. At Professional Association, Abana has a robust calendar of events that we hold every year, about 35 Abana events and 15 to 20 partner events. Our aim is to connect, support, and inform those financial professionals and institutions between the US and the MENA region. If you are not yet a member, I would urge you to join. If you have any questions, you can come see me. My name is Zainab. Rania, who's sitting over there, is our head of communications, and we have a couple board members with us today, Hani Beyhoun and Dr. Amal Musa. So please, if you have any questions, please come see us. We have a number of very wonderful events coming up. The first of which is coming up on October 1st. It's our annual Achievement Award dinner where we're honoring David Rubenstein, the co-founder and co-executive chairman of the Carlyle Group. And we're thrilled to have Khaldoun Mubarak from Mubadala, the group CEO of Mubadala Investment Company, introduce him. We also have on October 25th the second annual US MENA Tech Summit. It's a wonderful event. We have a number of great startups coming to pitch and a number of great speakers. If you would like to attend, please ask me about it. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Amal Musa and Dr. Steve Harvey for organizing this very interesting discussion. I know that Lena said a few words about Dr. Harvey. I would just like to add that he also has won several awards for teaching areas of human resources management, organizational behavior, organizational conflict, and negotiations. Moderating this discussion is Dr. Amal Musa, who is not only an Abana board member, but she is the equity, exotic derivatives, and dispersion trader at Citi. In addition to her work in markets, Emma teaches a yearly graduate course at Columbia University and has served as a lecturer of mathematics at AUB, so there's AUB connection as well. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Musa and Dr. Harvey to start the discussion. Thank you.
Yes.
Studying business at OSB gives you an opportunity to be at the crossroads of the world. Our business degrees have a very clear purpose to them. You will be developing a core competency in business with some specialization, but you will also be developing as a citizen. So it's extremely important for us as students to be exposed to a mindset that is going to serve them for the rest of their life and not a skill set that is going to have momentary purpose.
I became friends with people who are very driven.
In my class, we are like one big family together. Yeah. OSB is a leading business school in Lebanon and the Middle East, and it has a great reputation, especially in the market.
I'm learning about a new culture, learning a new language. All of that, I think, is going to be really relevant in this region.
We really want our business students to think outside of just the market economics and think about what they can do as responsible citizens in this developing economy, but also globally.
Our students not only learn about theories that are Western-based, but they also learn about theories that have been produced here in this part of the world and that are relevant to the context that they will join and they will be operating in once they leave OSB.
We have moved our teaching from a typical lecture experience to have more and more case studies and help them in creating their own business ideas.
With the executive education, our mission is to be able to provide high-end, real impact programs that will affect the individuals, the teams, as well as the organizations.
We have attracted the world's best researchers to the region, and they are from the region.
There is a common thread that links all of these talents together, which is trying to address the real problems that face the region and then bringing them back to the classroom and making an impact in the society.
It's not about finding a job, but rather finding a fit between our students, their skills, their interests, their strengths, and a career path.
If you want to be educated by the best players in the market, the best players in the region, you'd come to the OSB.
Amazing, top-notch academics with this incredible, unique cultural experience, and that's a powerful combination.
If you're curious and you're willing to learn from others, the learning curve is just up high.
The students, our faculty, our staff, believing that they can change the world, that they can change their environments. That's something that drives us every day.
Hi everyone, thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure for me to be here as well, moderating this conversation with Dr. Steve Harvey. I've had the chance to meet Dr. Harvey on a few occasions before through more the academic path rather than Abana or AUB in particular. And I'm so thrilled to have the chance to host this conversation today with Dr. Harvey. My first question is around innovation and the startup ecosystem in Lebanon. We all know that around 5 years ago, equity financing for startups and new businesses in Lebanon and in the region in general was almost non-existent. However, in 2015, the Banque du Liban issued Circular 331, which aimed at incentivizing commercial banks to invest in the startup ecosystem and in entrepreneurship in Lebanon through guaranteeing up to 75% of their investments in entrepreneurship, and venture capital funds, and new businesses and startups. And that mobilizing more than $400 million in equity financing in Lebanon. That momentum has made straight progress, which was evident across all the stages of the startup ecosystem in Lebanon, with the rise of many businesses, startups, accelerators, incubators, enablers, etc. And it has been a great initiative for Lebanon and new businesses in Lebanon. My question to you today, Dr. Harvey, is how's the business school at AUB contributing and taking an active role in the innovation and entrepreneurship within that startup ecosystem in Lebanon?
I can speak.
Sorry, I thought you have your own. I turned it off.
It's a good question, and I like the question because it prefaced it with what we're observing right now in Beirut, and that's really, you have an ecosystem, an entrepreneurial ecosystem that is as vibrant as any other place in the world now. I think that the energy is there, the capital is increasingly there, the interest is there, the mindset, if you wish, is there. There are always some challenges, and they're unique to each region in which you're dealing with, so certainly that is a truth for us in particular. But that being said, it's a vibrant area, and we as a business school have a role to play in that. We have things that we can do and should do, in fact are doing, and are going to be doing more of going forward. So let me just take you through a few of those things and talk a little bit about what we do. The first thing is to set the stage and understanding that it's not just, entrepreneurship is no longer just a thing about business schools. It's no longer just the responsibility of a business school, but it's that of a university. Because many entrepreneurs come from outside of business schools. The reality is that it's the content of a person's interests and passions that often drive the businesses that they lead, and that doesn't always, and frankly, rarely comes from a business school. In fact, most entrepreneurs, I'd say about 80% of them, come from outside of the business school type environment. But we have an important role to play in that nonetheless, in guiding the development and the movement forward. So even with our own students, if only 20% of entrepreneurs do come from business schools, we have a responsibility there, including also helping the other 80% realize their dreams. Now, the way we do that is through being inclusive in everything we do as a business school when it comes to entrepreneurship. By that, I mean we have an Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, the Darwaza Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and it is increasingly including in its student competitions and in its student development all of the students of all of AUB to compete for developing business awards and, of course, guiding them along the way to being, in fact, a viable business. It's been in operation for a while, as an example, and already we have our first successful business that has started as a result of that. And MoodFit, if you look it up, MoodFit OSB, they'll tell you a little bit about the story of this student group, who are business students that are now operating an online business. And it came through and was incubated by us partly in the process. Now, there are other stories that are emerging, of course, and this is just the beginning, and there are other parts of the university that are operating as well. Another thing that we are increasingly doing, not just in our business school, but in most business schools, is we all have courses in entrepreneurship, but frankly, that's not enough. You have to impregnate throughout the content, throughout the actual curriculum. You have to have activities that are full of opportunities for people to think in an innovative sense. And also to begin to change the mindset of entrepreneurship as being a solo type activity that you do independently of organizations. In fact, we're encouraging more and more students to develop what we call an entrepreneurial mindset as opposed to simply become entrepreneurs. Because you can be an entrepreneur, you can work for organizations and be an entrepreneur within that organization. I still recall very vividly, and this takes me back to my prior deanship, I was sitting at a table like this with a number of executives giving them a brief on entrepreneurship within the university, within the school. And the discussion led to our students and how prepared they are for the world of work, because most of them were hiring our students and not just concerned about entrepreneurship. And one executive in the group said, you know, you have to better prepare your students. You know, they always have an example of how we can do things better, of course. You need to better prepare your students. In particular, you're developing them too much as entrepreneurs. They come in and they interview, and the next thing you know, they're trying to take over, they want to run my business. I said, that's not the kind of person I want to hire. The other executives around the table said, well, if you're not going to hire them, I'm going to hire them, because I want someone who thinks innovatively about what they do. If they have a desire to start something themselves in several years from now, for the time being, I'm going to get the best out of them because they're going to help my business grow in the process. So there was a changing mindset among the executives that we should be educating students along this mindset and not simply just trying to create new businesses. It's a mindset that we're training. So it's part of the content as well, too. It's not just a core part of the business teaching content that we have. And finally, AUB is going to announce in the next little while more formally the beginning of an innovation park, which will in fact cover the entire university's advance in this particular area. And this will create an opportunity to help our students in an even grander way get access to developing their business ideas. And not just the students, but also the professors and everyone else associated with the AUB community. So I think we're doing considerably more and more. There's always more that we can do, but I'm very happy to say that we're making the kind of adjustments that are going to be important to our playing our part.
Thank you. I do believe that as Lebanese and in general, people in the Middle East, within each of us, there is kind of an entrepreneur, but having solid and well customized system to help grow these initiatives is very important, and AUB is doing a great job in that. My second question in the same line is around technological advances and how's AUB working around that. So technological innovation has always led to disruption in politics and society and the economy. And today one can argue that artificial intelligence and machine learning are not just accelerating this disruption, but also bringing new changes that one cannot fully anticipate. My question to you is, how's AUB and the business school in particular adapting to artificial intelligence and the recent technological changes that are creating a new environment and changing somehow the workspace?
When you first look at this, and as many people would, they become very afraid that the world is changing so quickly that they're not going to be able to make the adjustments and the adaptations going forward. Everything we do, if we look inward in our organization, looks ancient relative to what everyone is predicting the world is going to look like when artificial intelligence, big data, all of these concepts come to fruition. But when you take the time to look around, you look at other organizations, I look at other business schools, I look at other places, I realize that we're all moving pretty much at the same pace. It is true that there is advance in technology and that there's a great growth, but we don't necessarily need to feel self-conscious about the point that we're in a different place right now than where we're going to be going forward, and that there is a way forward. Now the way forward is to, of course, be part of the process. And one of the things that we decided, and there are several things that we decided, is that we are going to harness technology and innovation and move forward with it as best we can and not become afraid of what seems to be a changing world. That's an important awareness to have of the circumstance, because many times you get into paralysis because of too much analysis, okay? How far are we, where are we going to move, and so forth. So let's just get involved and see where it takes us. One of the things that we've done, and we've boldly done this, and I think we're probably the strongest and one of the first movers in the Middle East, is we've created a master's degree in business analytics. We believe that the role that we can play within that space is maybe not to be the grand data scientist, but certainly there's a room for taking analytics and the things that we do with respect to artificial intelligence and data mining and machine learning, and make it more accessible to the business world through what we call business analytics. And that's really taking the analytics work itself and making it usable and understandable within the business community. So we're training an increasing number of students now with our master's program to be prepared to work in this space. And we're going to be developing centers of excellence and research around this as we move along, as we gain the expertise, and more importantly, we do so in concert with industry and not alone. Some of the things that universities have learned over the years, and we're very focused on that as a business school, is that we're part of an ecosystem. And that ecosystem has to participate equally in the education of the students moving forward. To believe that professors and faculty researchers are going to be at the cutting edge of everything that's happening in the world is simply not going to happen. We have great adjuncts teaching with us in various capacities because they are in the world practicing particular issues that are brought to the classroom in a if you wish, dimension for the students and for the faculty. So operating in a larger ecosystem, realizing that we have to enter this journey with all of these people in the ecosystem is important, and that's the way that we've built this master's program, is really working in partnership as we move forward. We also are looking at upgrading ourselves regularly. We redesigned our executive MBA program recently, and it was very clear between me and all the professors teaching in it, which is a good number of our professors, about a third of our professors, is that if you're going to teach in this program, you had to be upgraded with respect to technology used in the coursework. Every one of the classes taught by every one of the professors has a large blended component to it. In other words, they all went back to school to a certain extent, to prepare themselves to be able to teach this course in a very blended way. And blended means essentially teaching the classical form of being present and working with students, but also using technology to enhance virtual learning in various ways, on online learning in its many capacities. So we're doing the kind of things that we can at the pace that is right, and I think at the pace that is really competitive with what we're seeing other institutions doing, and not getting too afraid of the circumstances and saying we're making movement going forward. And I think it's leading to good results.
Thank you. That's great. Like working myself in a financial institution, I do find that it's very important for the business school today to move from a classic finance academic institution to more quantitative and open to big data and statistical applications for the students, because every single financial institution, whether it's a bank or consulting company, and more generally firms that are part of the industry where the students end up, they are focusing on these areas, and it's an area for growth. So definitely I do agree with that. My third question related to AUB students and where they end up being in the workspace is, how's AUB trying to bridge the East and the West through networking opportunities for its students to go abroad for internships or for exchanges with other universities, and to create more connections and more openings to other countries, and how's AUB working with the Lebanese community or AUBites in general abroad to help the students there find opportunities abroad?
This question can be tackled in many different ways, and how we're doing things now, and I'd like to also talk a little bit about how we can and should be doing things differently going into the future. East and West, I look at it from the perspective as we're in the middle. In the Middle East, that's why they call us Middle East, right? We're in the middle, but I think when we look back and when we look to the future, if we're not careful, we've really been focused on the West and not so much on the East. And I'm going to make the point that we have to reconfigure things because there is really a danger in being so focused on the West with the changing of the guard, if you wish, when it comes to the business community. The global world is shifting, and shifting in important ways, so that when we focus on how we've been successful in making these links in the past, our ability to make successful links in the future are going to be compromised by our ability to do so, and to have to do so in different ways than we have. What we have been doing, now going back to the question, is we have a great alumni base, of course. It's helped us extensively with our students. It's helped our students effectively move to various locations in the world to be able to have opportunities that are dreamed about by other institutions. Part of that comes simply from the brand of AUB. It's a great school. It's known worldwide, and the students who graduate from it get opportunities that are frankly sometimes not afforded to other less well-known schools. So the brand itself, our alumni, have opened up doors. Any doors that we've knocked on have always been open to a certain extent for our students. They're led into the best institution for their graduate work. They're given internship opportunities in places in the world where they really develop even further their abilities to be cosmopolitan in their views of business in the world. So generally speaking, we've been quite lucky to have what we have as a RISO, as a network, to be able to draw upon. The danger lies in what I started off pointing out, is we have to realize that the global business world is moving to the East. There is a reality that business will be changing in the way that it operates. Who defines how business operates will be those who dominate in the business world. And that increasingly is going to come from Asia, Africa, other parts of the world that view society, view commercial exchange and trade in different ways. We talk about the One Belt, One Road roads. Of course, in China, moving itself through the Middle East is going to change the way that we operate. We've often talked about East-West relations. We're going to be talking now about North-South relations within the East and not so much within the West. How well are our students prepared for that? How well are we prepared to connect them to all of that is going to be a task for us going into the future. We don't necessarily have a great number of alumni in that part of the world as we have had in the Western world in the past. So these are challenges that I'm as dean right now looking at trying to find solutions to going forward. And I think we've got some pretty good ideas. We're talking to some partners that are going to really help us leapfrog effectively into those domains. But generally speaking, I think it's the strength of an institution's alumni base that makes the difference in these connections. And of course, the partnerships that we have with other great institutions around the world are not to be forgotten. It's very important to us.
Thank you. Definitely AUB has done a lot to enhance the alumni network. Eva is here, and not being an AUB student myself, I think indirectly I benefited from that network and having access to the network through all the amazing events. I think something more practical could help further that communication, like a blog or a big WhatsApp chat or something where the communication with the students could flow more seamlessly than it is now through emails or through the chapters. Not sure, Eva, if that's something you'd like to consider, because to some students having access to a chat or a blog, it's a much easier communication than having to formally write an email and reach out to the chapters, and some people don't even know the chapters. So,
Could I add a rejoinder to that? And to be fair to our colleagues in alumni services, of course, they are doing just that now. They created a platform, right? And I've observed it, we talked about it at Berkeley just recently. This platform will enable people to facilitate that connection to people who are most likely to respond back with the kind of connection that is necessary to help them moving forward. And in other words, it's a mutually desirable connection and not simply a lost email that you're sending to someone who may or may not be interested in receiving it. And it's creating those platforms. And of course, the cyber technology makes this much easier. And I think that that's going to be very helpful. I'm sure at some point, perhaps we can bring them in on the conversation and tell us a little bit more about that, because I think it's important. I'm also reminded by one of the things that we've done within the business schools. We created a career management service a few years ago. We're just, rather than looking at it simply as placement, we're looking at career management as something that is a lifelong reality. And we have now services, we have director and an associate director focused extensively on making the life of our students from the day that they arrive until the day that they retire later on in life part of our concern when it comes to career management services. We want to follow people and their journey and their experiences throughout their experience with us, because it really touches at that issue. I think that it's more than simply giving someone a degree and seeing them off. It really should be about welcoming them to the family and keeping information about them and them having information about us on an ongoing basis so that we can keep the dialogue going.
Thank you. My next question is about leadership in Lebanon and in the Middle East. In most regions, it might sound a little bit of a cliche question, but in most regions in the world, leaders, whether in politics, education, literature, or other areas, they arise from people who have the educational background and the expertise and the knowledge, and who couple that with the right skill set of what makes you be a leader, charisma, character, and knowledge in particular. In the Middle East, I feel we're not there yet. The concept of leadership and the possibility for leaders to arise and to reach out to top levels in politics, but also in the industry, is not there yet. So my question to you is, what is AUB and the business school in particular doing to enhance the concept of leadership in Lebanon to prepare the next generation in leaders? And more specifically, what's AUB doing to prepare the next generation of female women leaders in Lebanon and in the Middle East?
Thank you for that question. And I think my answer to the first part of the question is answered with the last part of the question, because I believe firmly that women leaders are going to make a difference in the Middle East over the years ahead, because it's a significant part of the leadership component that has been missing. It's a large portion of the population. If you just look at it from a statistical standpoint, you're leaving out a lot of potential. And I think once we add that potential to the equation, we also have a different perspective added to the equation, we begin to see changes. And I think that that's going to be certainly a very important vehicle of change as we do more. At OSB in particular, we've been very committed to the notion of women in leadership, women in business. In fact, without preempting announcements, we will be making several announcements over the months and years ahead about some significant contributions and significant presence that we're going to take in that domain. We have partnerships with some of the leading groups for leadership and women in the region, throughout the MENA region, and not simply in Lebanon. We've been signing memorandums of understanding of working with them in everything from training for entrepreneurs, executive education, scholarships for young leaders wanting to join us as students and so forth. But also in the form of research as well too. I would say that we have some of the top scholars in the world in their levels as assistant and associate professors who studied gender issues in the workplace, and they're right with us at OSB in the Middle East, and they're doing wonderful work. So it will be a time very soon where I think we would expect to see an institute or a center focused on women in leadership and work emerge very soon to continue to make those contributions. And if you're looking for a tangible example of what that can be or how it can have an impact, look at the KIT project that you may have heard about, Knowledge is Power. It was run by one of our outstanding researchers and professors, Shalat Karam. And she has a great interview on CNN if you're looking for more information about the kind of impact that they can have. And the kind of impact that their work is having is, in fact, they're being part of the discussion of policy around new laws that are going to, if you wish, facilitate the development further of these issues. So I think that we have an important role to play in there. We plan to play an important role in there. And I think leadership begins, usually, changes in leadership and improvements in a society begin by taking those that may have been marginalized, giving them a voice, and giving them an opportunity to share and become more inclusive in the decision-making process. And that's how a society grows, and that's how a society moves forward.
Thank you. I think most of you have the same experience that moms in Lebanon are leaders for the family, and every Lebanese woman grows with a sense of leadership, but we need to have the support of universities and governments to bring that leadership to actual roles effective for the society and for the firms. My last question for you today, just for the sake of time and to open the floor for Q&As, is around the corporate social responsibility. Lebanon has passed through many years now of waste crisis, pollution, and not to name the so many issues that are related to environment and also habits that are not respectful for the environment and the society we live in. So what is AUB doing to enhance the concept of corporate social responsibility and the role of the society within the industries in Lebanon?
I can speak from the perspective of the business school because I'm most familiar with what we've done there and what we are doing. We're, first of all, signatories to what is known as PRIME, which is the Principles for Responsible Management Education. which means that we are committed to, as part of the educational process in business, to include all matters and a complete set of matters on sustainable business. The whole idea of a triple or quadruple bottom line is the notion that you have more to be concerned about than simply the profitability of the firm, and you have other concerns, and that's the perspective in which we teach all of our courses and programs to be members of this. So we're committed to that, and we're formally committed to it in our teaching responsibilities. But it's also what we do in the business community that matters as well too. To teach is one thing, but then to act is another. And certainly, one of the ways in which we've done that is we're also housing the Global Compact, UN Global Compact. It has regional groups that operate within, and we are of course helping operate the group within Lebanon. And this works directly with corporations who make themselves commitments to have targets and plans for improvement in the area of social sustainability and social responsibility. The fact that we're involved in that and that we're constantly involving more and more of the organizations and institutions in Lebanon is bringing, one might say, more conscious to the problem itself. It is a tall order. It's a very tall order. It involves many different things. If you look at the UN strategic goals, there are many. They vary from pollution to corruption. They're very extensive. These are not things that are resolved overnight. These are things that are designed to be worked on a predictable progress. So we're playing our part in that. We're doing what we can. We're certainly making all of our students aware of it, and there are various programs and activities that we have throughout the year that keep reminding our faculty and our students of the importance of these things. I would say almost on a monthly or bi-weekly basis.
Thank you. For those of you who have not visited AUB campus in Lebanon, the first thing that strikes you and probably that gives you that strive to apply to AUB and to enter AUB as a student is the view of the Mediterranean Sea in front with the small forest on the campus, and that's we hope that that would be the view of all Lebanon, and we arrive one day at that. I'd like to open now the floor for Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise it.
I have one question. With all the news that we hear about Saudi Arabia wanting to develop its women, both on the educational front and on the professional front, have they reached out to AUB at large and to the business school in particular to try and solicit programs perhaps they could work with you on for their women?
I wouldn't say that in any formal capacity that's happened, at least for us as a business school. It may have happened elsewhere, but certainly organizations and other institutions that are working on these issues have involved some of our faculty in different ways. So there is discussion, there are things happening, and our group, our people are involved in various individual ways where they can, and that it's not just reserved to that part of the world, that country itself. Other countries in the region as well too have reached out to us in different ways. And again, it's when you have a core of experts, that's the natural thing that happens, is that people are looking for experts to help them develop, and I'm happy to say that we have some of those people that get reached out to.
Related to that question, can you please provide us also some perspective for other institutions in the region? How are they tackling these issues? Is it unique for OSB that doing these things, or the whole region is also moving upward?
I'm happy to say that many of the universities in their unique ways are doing a variety of things that are similar to us. I mean, everyone chooses to be good or specialized or excellent at various things. We tend to be, if you wish, self-focused to the point where we don't always acknowledge that. But there is a lot happening in many of the universities and other institutions around that are making a difference. NGOs and our sister universities down the road, all in very different and unique ways. We can't focus on everything, of course. The nice thing about competition is that you decide to focus on things that are not necessarily perhaps sufficiently focused on, therefore creating an opportunity for you to develop something further, but also you focus on things that you have an excellence capacity to focus on and not so much on things that you have less of. So, we stay within the areas in which we know that we have impact. And, there are institutions that are I wouldn't consider them our rivals, but are sister institutions in Lebanon that do very well at other things, or in fact similar things. I mean, there are other great things happening for women in leadership at other institutions. LAU has done some great work there, and others as well too. So I would recognize that is very important. And if anything, what we would want to do as an institution, because remember, AUB is often looked up to as a benchmark of excellence in the region, is that we inspire other institutions to pick up where we can't pick up. To me, that's the biggest compliment that we can have, is if we can encourage more institutions to want to follow suit and perhaps do things or pick up in areas in which we haven't. And I think that's probably an important role for us heading into the future. There was a day where AUB was probably one of the few or only options that people have. Now they have more options. Let's hope that those options continue to elevate their standards as well relative to the excellence that we strive for. Eric?
Just the only question I had was, so words like big data and analytics, how do they make their way into a business school's curriculum, vocabulary, mission? Is the business school sort of always on the lookout for these new trends and trying to integrate them into their mission, education mission?
Yeah, we basically look for these new trends. There's no hiding that. I mean, and if you don't look for them, they're going to hit you at some point. So I think it's a combination of those things happening right now. Business schools are I would say, for one thing, I mean, I've done more than just simply oversee business schools. I've overseen universities as well too in a research capacity. And I can say that I'm proud of one thing that business schools do that some others typically don't, is that they're constantly seeking to stay current and progress and to move forward with new challenges. They're very aware that the world changed, particularly the business world. So we do look for these opportunities. We do see them emerging. In fact, what we are reacting to at some point may be things that we think are not yet evident to people that will become evident. So the real challenge is, as a good Canadian, I often cite Wayne Gretzky, who you may know as a hockey player. And they ask him what made him a great hockey player, and he says, many people chase the puck. I just know where the puck is going, and I have to go where I know the puck is going to be. So I think a good business school is doing just that. It's trying to determine the trends that will be emerging. Some will hit you because you missed them and they're happening, or you haven't been paying attention to them, but others will be happening. And one of the ones that I pointed out earlier is I really do believe that not just schools in the Middle East, but schools in America have been blinded to the change in business that's going to occur when the business rules are redefined by the East. They're going to be redefined in 10 to 15 years from now, and if we're training people the same way, we're not going to be as prepared to be competitive in that environment. Now, that's not something anyone is talking about. I'm saying it here. People may roll their eyes and say, well, it's never going to happen. Well, neither one of us will really have to hold account to that in 15 years from now, probably, but the chances are that it is going to happen. The demographics are pointing in that direction. So we go out, we look for those opportunities. We try to read the future and where we think we need to be going so that we can begin making decisions now. The kind of hires that we make, the kind of programs that we create, and so forth are all going to be very important.
Now, do you work in specific cross-partnerships, with some of the universities here, just to sort of share ideas amongst sort of the entrepreneurial departments? Because that sometimes would kind of make sense with getting the story out, because a lot of times the story can never be told until you have some boots on the ground, in each area. So are there partners that you have here that you work with?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say that to a certain extent, AUB has had some great partnerships in many domains, in health in particular, arts and sciences. Business as a school is fairly new. I mean, it's been around for maybe a dozen years as a school, a separate faculty. So it's in its nascent stage developing those partnerships, and frankly, I'm spending a lot of my time now as the dean developing them further, because you can only be as good as what you have, and you make yourself great by extending yourself and including others in the process. And we're looking for like-minded institutions and are working with like-minded institutions around the world to complement ourselves, to complete ourselves in that fashion. And in some cases, partnering with other institutions that are equally strong in our area so that we become powerful in those areas as opposed to just simply very good. So there are a number of strategies around partnering that is very important. And this is one thing that, I've always appreciated with business schools, and increasingly other schools are starting to do the same, engineering and so forth, of completing themselves through alliances and partnerships with other schools around the world, because I think it really does matter that we're able to do that, because this is where we solve some of the big, tough problems that society brings, is that when we come together on these issues as opposed to trying to solve them in isolated silos or institutional silos.
Dr. Harvey, I don't watch hockey, so I don't know what is it exactly called, but you see the ball, you see the business ball is going towards the east. How do you think universities can go there, can follow the ball? So we heard that this is the trend, this is what's going to happen, this is a prediction, if you want. In particular, when you see universities around the world, the big name universities, now they have a lot of students coming from the east. In my class, like a few years back, business school, like majority of my class was from the east. Same is in the US. My husband teaches in school, and the composition is completely changed in the past 10 years. So students are studying here. From a business perspective, from a business school perspective, how can we actually go there?
It's not obvious. I still remember a lesson that I learned from my father when I was very young. He pointed out to me, and it's been very clear to me all ever since, he says, one day the student becomes the teacher, and the teacher becomes the student. And if you keep that in mind, you will always be in a good place. And I think that this is the way that we've been thinking about the East. They're great students. We bring them in. We teach them about our great Western way of thinking about business. They're students now, but one day they will become the teachers. One day they will become the rulers, the overseers, the leaders, and they will be dictating from their cultural perspectives and backgrounds and preferences and ways of relating what business can. Business evolves. What we consider to be appropriate, what we consider to be meaningful, what we consider to be right or wrong, or ethical or unethical, evolves. I mean, there is no written rule that things are done in a certain way. We write it that way, but certainly it evolves. So there will be that shift that occurs, and it behooves us to then decide how do we go about preparing for that. And I really do believe it's time for us to go study there. It's time for us to spend some time there, as opposed to seeing them as a revenue model where we generate revenue by educating students from the East. We should in fact be, investing in ourselves in studying there as well too, because the basic proposition is that the student does become the teacher, and at some point we do become, if you wish, the student.
So is there plans for AUB, Shanghai University?
We're looking for investors. So. Yes.
So along your lines of predicting trends and the geopolitical world changing with different economies, different political around the world, to your question and to your answer, we're looking for ways. So if I go back, and I previously worked for a Japanese company a long time ago, Harvard Business School wanted to adapt at that time the Japanese style of management, which was consensus driven, that I don't think worked out, but having that input understanding that economy here, economy in Europe, economy in Japan, economy in China, and elsewhere. They're different economies, and they sort of just work differently. But having had that experience working at a Japanese bank, working with Chinese partners, companies, I think it helps. So this very afternoon that you're having here, if you had that, maybe in Beijing, in Tokyo, in Mumbai, Kazakhstan, to understand the culture, I think, is just as important. To understand the economy and to understand the different economies and the different.
Yeah, there's no simple linear way of going about this. Really, it's about immersion. It's about immersing ourselves in the reality. It's very difficult to predict what will emerge, because what will emerge will be an organic process. It'll be one of time, it'll be one of circumstance, it'll be one of world events, geopolitical as well as social. So it makes it difficult to know exactly how to best teach or prepare people, other than to immerse them within those realities. It's to create experiences that move us further. And an example you give of the Japanese, where we tried to learn so much from bettering ourselves and from them in the past, is a good example where we can easily fall in the trap of assuming, hey, see, it didn't work, it didn't happen. But then there's also the idea that sometimes an idea is just too soon. In other words, these things, we just try to enact something before its time, and so forth. So there's that, there's that reality as well. So the best we can do is to be aware, is to make people aware, to increase discussion, and to be open to learning and to educating ourselves about the future. I don't think the world is going to end with this change, but the world is going to change, and that is evident. And we're going to be relevant to the extent that we keep that in mind. We see more universities being created in the East, and we see universities struggling in the West. I mean, how many small liberal arts institutions just in this region right now are fighting for their lives, right? We know. Whereas we're looking for investors to create new opportunities, and there are Chinese universities joining the rankings of major universities, major business schools that are now ranked among the best in the world. And we've talked a lot about China, but we haven't even talked about Africa and the impact that that's going to have on us in the next while. Some predictions are that 25% of the middle class in the next 10 to 15 years will be in Africa. That changes the ballgame completely. The consumer speaks, the consumer has impact, and where business goes and what it does will have an impact as well. So there's enormous change happening in the world that we have to take a look at and see how to work best with them.
Does OBS offer a year abroad for their students in Asia today?
Sorry?
Does OBS offer a year?
We do. Well, we don't have a year away, but we do have an exchange program. I'm about to work with some Chinese entities to have an increased number of them as well. This is where the students have to avail themselves of these opportunities. I have seen this, and this often happens, is we're more advanced than our students are sometimes in thinking about these world futures. I mean, we may not be as advanced in their use of technology, but we certainly are seeing the world in different ways. So we have a lot of convincing to do with even our student populations about this future. So the opportunities are there, frankly, but I don't think...
To go abroad?
Yeah.
And study there?
Yeah, but people aren't availing themselves of it necessarily. So it's us doing a better job of selling it, but then also seeing much more clearly their futures and where they're going to be in that future.
I saw with the Swiss business schools, we were based in Geneva, sending to Hong Kong business school in English. 5,000 students in Hong Kong getting their MBAs.
Looking at those models, there's been some mixed successes with those. I think these changes have started. These exchanges have started, if you wish, rather abruptly and quickly. There's not a lot of thought that's gone into the experience and how you transfer that experience back into a learning change in the students. So the feedback that I've received is that there's more work to be done to make those experiences higher quality than they currently are, because right now they in some cases they may just simply be mass exchanges where students are transporting their Western experience into an Eastern world and are being if you wish, sort of coddled within that perspective and then brought back. In other cases, they're finding that they're not being as welcomed as they expected to be, and that is, there's all kinds of challenges. So we're hoping to be able to develop things that are not so challenged. And I think that there's different populations in which we work with as well too. I didn't speak about it now, but one of our major changes as a business school is we're no longer going to be just focused on the undergraduate and graduate market. We're going to be looking at the corporate learners as well too. We're heavily invested and will continue to heavily invest in executive education. So some of the changes are going to occur as well among executives who are beginning to grit these experiences and to look at the world in a different way. And when they begin to make those changes, of course, the followers will be the students, will be the employees, will be the societies and the organizations that follow. So we're making progress not just on the traditional classic student populations, but the corporate populations as well. And developing programs at that level is probably going to happen before we develop a grand number of programs at the undergraduate and graduate level.
So another quote attributed to Wayne Gretzky is that a player misses 100% of the shots that he does not take.
That's right.
And when you look, there's a value in being proactive. Your top students today, what fields do those proactive, aggressive, great MBA students, do they want to go into tech, private equity, real estate? What are they chasing? What is the next, if you could say, where is that MBA student looking to get placed today?
I think a number of them. I mean, some come in with very, very tracked minds. I mean, and that's fair. They go into finance because they want to go into banking and investments. It could be driven by they want to be rich. I mean, there's a very clear perspective, and they see this as the most direct line. But putting that aside, because those are very determined people. She studies exotic derivatives. This has got to be the most interesting topic area. So there are those, but I think the area that has caught on, and in fact I think it's a good learning ground, is our top-notch students are going into consulting. Some of them are landing jobs in some of the top consulting firms in the world. We're very proud of that. And what that does is it gives you an exposure to many different industries, many different clients, different problem sets and so forth. And after a few years of doing that, you realize you need to get a life. You don't want to live out of a suitcase all the time. And then it's a great school for them to then decide areas in which they might want to work more specifically or continue. So I'd say a lot of them are moving into that direction, the ones that are the most capable. In fact, in some cases, they have jobs well before they graduate.
Maybe one more?
Yes.
What do you think about blockchain? And if you guys are offering any courses?
We certainly within our business analytics we talk about blockchain. Somebody pointed out to me the other day where again I'm not an expert in this area. We're all being affected by it, myself included. But he typified it because he works with a number of companies in the area. He says there's a lot of hype about it, and it is going to have an impact. There's no question. It's going to have an impact, but we're far from knowing what kind of impact it's going to have. And he says, liken it to the days in which we used to use DOS. How many people around here remember DOS? He says, we're at about the DOS stage right now when it comes to blockchain. We know it's going to have an impact. We know that it has an enormous potential for what we're doing, but the real potential has so many bugs yet left in it and so much development ahead of us that everyone is jumping into it, but no one is going to find the holy grail over the next year or two. But what we do know is that technology is making its way, that thinking is making its way into a lot of things that we do. So again, it's the running scared model that I talked about earlier on, is that you can say, oh my God, I missed it. I don't even know what blockchain is. I better Google it and find out what this is about because I think it's going to impact my business. Yes, you should do all of those things, but also realize that it is something that is going to progress, and it's going to progress at an accelerated rate, perhaps later than sooner, when we do begin to make some breakthroughs.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we can touch on family business and the program that you are tracking.
Yeah, family business is something, and thank you for bringing that up, is something that is, particularly within the Middle East, I think it's particularly important. And as we move east more, we start to realize that family business is even more important than we have ever historically thought about it being important. Family business is important anywhere in the world, frankly. Majority of businesses anywhere in the world are family businesses. There's just no moving around that. But we've taught business education as being Fortune 500 companies. You know, we teach our students, you're going to run a Fortune 500 company, you're going to work within a Fortune 500 company. That's the mentality, the mindset that we've had. So we have to begin to teach differently because family businesses do have uniqueness about how they operate, how they think, how they allocate resources. Everything about a family business can be different than a professionally, if you wish, constituted entity that we typically frame when we're teaching business. And it's also regional, it's cultural, it's individual, it's family. And understanding that is important. So we're committed to, as a business school, to begin to do more in the area of family business as a traditional topic area, to be teaching courses in that area, to have a research focus, maybe even a center or an institute one day in that area because we think it's that important. And in fact, we've made some recent hires of people who specialize in family business and the dynamics of family business and its impact. So that becomes something that we have to work through as we move forward. In the Middle East, family business is extremely important. Some of the largest organizations are family businesses and have been and will probably continue to be for many years. And I don't see that changing as we see the world order begin to change on the business front. I think that we're going to have different dynamics that are operational in some Asian countries and some African countries because they're unique. But we need to be teaching more from that perspective as well, too.
Right. Well, we can continue maybe this conversation around some hummus, as I told Lena before. Thank you very much, Dr. Harvey, for making the trip and for this very enlightening conversation. I hope that we can reach to all the points that we discussed today, and a year or two from now that we have a completely different conversation because we've already tackled all these in Lebanon with the help of AUB and the region. So thank you again on behalf of Havana and with Lena on behalf of AUB. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Something.
It's fun.
Thank you.
I always learn something.
Thank you.
I learned something new in our conversation. It is, it's so important. And I think
yeah.